for me on the leadership side, it's teaching people, give them that, how are we going to do this? Here's our goal. How are we going to do that? And then build some values around it as well. This is the way we're going to behave. And then, kind of build those measurements and celebrate them. We've built values that we live by. And when we reached certain goals, like the $1 billion, we're going to celebrate that.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan DeLeon, and I'm here with our founder and CEO, Jason Duff. Joining us today, we have the president and the CEO of Richwood Bank, Chad Hoffman. We want to welcome you to the Small Talk podcast, where we share some of the valuable lessons with what we have learned about entrepreneurship, real estate, economic development, and more. The point of this podcast is to create value for you, the listener, and to create a space to learn, talk about what's trending, and inspire others.
Thank you, Ethan. Hey, Chad. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Jason. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah, I know Ethan earlier, Freudian slip, like he's going to mention Richwood marketing, which we're going to talk more about later.
Yeah. But, absolutely.
Richwood Bank.
Yes.
You are the president and CEO. Those are big duties, big titles to have.
Yeah, I've had that since 2007. So if you remember the financial industry and how it worked, 2007 is when I became president CEO, and then 2008 was the financial crash. Exactly. So yes, I got to learn baptism by fire is great for anybody, right?
Yeah, no, that's the time, and that's probably what has made you the diamond that you are today.
It definitely. Adversity brings about innovation, right? I mean, you've got to think of things differently. So it actually was kind of a blessing for me that early to be challenged that much. Mm-hmm. Same old wasn't going to work anymore. And I think some of us kind of need that kick in the butt to say, okay, I can't do the way I did it yesterday and have the successes because things are different.
Yeah, that's right. And then you're in an institution that's been around for a number of years, right?
Yeah, we started in 1867, way back. I mean, that was a long time ago. Obviously, we celebrate the 150th back in 2017. And so, a guy by the name of Claiborne, which is in Richwood. And of course, he was a minister. He was the post office guy. He also started a bank. I mean, this is when everybody was doing all kinds of businesses. So when you talk about entrepreneurs, I mean, people back then, they truly were multi-entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. They weren't just doing one business. They were doing 4 or 5 because they needed that. So the guy that started the bank was a minister, was the post office master. He ran another business on the side. So, a true entrepreneur.
And when Richwood, how did Richwood find you, or how did you find Richwood?
So my family's been involved for a long time. My grandfather was president, and my uncle was then president following him. Started in 1976, my uncle became president, and sadly, my uncle passed away. He was 47 and died of a heart attack in his sleep. That was in December of 93. And at that time, my mother was actually working for him and was his kind of controller. It was a person underneath, but there were only 24 people working there at the time. The bank was about 68 million, and my mother ended up taking over. They tapped her shoulder. She never really was slated to ever do that, and she was president for 13 years, and I got to learn under her. She was very operationally based, so I got to learn the operations of the bank, how a bank actually works from her. And that was great to have that as a mentorship. And it was weird because, at home it was mom, and at bank it was Nancy. We tried to keep those two things separate, and it worked out great. We have a great relationship and always have.
When I've had guests on the podcast, they've asked stories about how Small Nation got started.
Yep.
One of our first projects that we ever that we began with was we bought a bank branch that had been vacant and empty in Lakeview, Ohio. And what happened, when I first started 25 years ago, there was lots of consolidation of the big banks purchasing the small and independents,
Yep.
which would leave empty buildings in town. But when you think back to growing up in Richwood, mm-hmm. and the role of working and seeing your mom and your family working in the bank, what kind of role does a community bank play? Like what did it play, and how do you think about that today?
Oh, it's huge. Community banks, the way that they invest themselves in the community. In other words, there were Richwood Bank baseball teams. I mean, they wore it on their shirts, right? You didn't see the big banks. They didn't have teams that were playing in Richwood, Ohio. And so, to be a part of the community and sponsor teams like that, to go to the ball games and you're supporting the kids. We kind of had a policy that if somebody was struggling financially, couldn't afford tennis shoes, but it's on the basketball team, we actually talked to the coaches sometimes and said, hey, let us know if there's some way that we can help, to sponsor the team, to help out, to pay for bus rides when they go to tournaments or something like that. Is that something that we can do and help out with? So, to have that connection and to really want the school district to do well, because again, if the community does well, the businesses are going to do well, right? And that benefits us. So it's not just you're doing it for that reason, but isn't that a nice, benefit to have is, hey, you're doing something nice that hopefully does turn around for you as well. So it's kind of a win-win situation. And we believe in those. And I just think community banks have such an important part to play in the communities to keep them strong. The stats will show if a community bank leaves a community, the businesses are next to go, because it pulls out the kind of the lifeblood. This is where they're getting their cash. This is where they're getting their change orders. It makes life a little bit easier. But when they pull out of some of these smaller towns, the town struggles, and then you're traveling to the next town over before you can get any of the businesses.
And I think that's what happened in Lakeview, is that it was because the bank was there. That's why people would support the pharmacy that was in town.
Absolutely.
They would, shop in the grocery store. And over a period of years, the bank was the first to go, but it didn't take probably 3 to 5 years, and all those other places I mentioned closed.
Yeah, that's what you see. I mean, that's not rarity. That's common. And so, our desire, the inspiration of our bank, the why statement of what we put in, our vision, our value, whatever you want to call it, is to inspire, protect, and celebrate anything that helps communities thrive. And Jason,
awesome.
You've heard me say, if the only human being that sees you is the UPS driver as they bring, your Amazon order to your house, if that's the only human interaction you have, you don't need a community, and you don't need a community bank. So you're focusing on the people that, that are coaching the baseball and the softball teams, and that are donating their time and their money to charitable organizations and nonprofits in the area. They're serving on local boards, local churches, whatever you want. But they're getting involved with other human beings, because that's what grows a community, is those relationships. And even the younger generations, it's not that you don't want to still have mobile banking or have online banking, but you still have to build that relationship that when they have a question, if they have a problem, if heaven forbid they have fraud on their account, who are they going to call to help them out of it? And wouldn't it be nice if you call somebody that you knew in the community that you felt comfortable with, hey, they're going to take care of me, as opposed to this strange voice on the other side that I have no idea where you are.
Shows that you value them, and more than just participating in your community, just that simple interaction with bank, calling and a person answering, and moreover someone that you may know is
correct.
That's insane.
And it's huge. And we really push the training, and I know training is really important today, but just to understand, one of the biggest things for us is that we see fraud every day. Every day we see people with fraud on their accounts, or their credit card has been stolen, or their account they gave out information that they shouldn't have, and we have to help them recover from this. So our team, I admit, sometimes gets frustrated with some people that call in and they did something silly.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did you not know not to do that? And we try to explain, okay, you've done it 50 times today. This is the first time in their life they've ever experienced it. So you have to have that understanding. And I remember a story about Walt Disney. That was one of the things that he did when he would test to see how well his employees were being trained. He went on a Jungle Cruise ride, and he kind of disguises himself. He gets on the boat. He rides around the ride. He came off, and he was extremely upset. So he goes to his training people, and he says, the person that gave the speech, the presentation on that Jungle Cruise, said he gave it like it was his 100th time he did it today. Well, guess what? It was the 100th time he'd done it that day. But he says to everybody else in that boat, that's the first time they've ever ridden it. And you've ruined their experience because you got bored.
And that ruins the magic.
And it ruins the magic.
Yeah.
So the same thing for us. It's kind of that curse of knowledge, right? It's that, hey, we know what fraud looks like. We've seen it every day. But for these people, it's the first time they've ever had it. So, treat it that way. And it's just, it's a great time to kind of learn how to help customers in new ways that maybe we never have before.
So would you say your primary customer base is the people directly around that city, I presume?
We actually operate in Richwood. We're in Plain City. We're in Marysville. We're in LaRue, Ohio, which is in Marion County. We're in Huntsville. We're in Delaware.
Wow.
We're in Springfield and now in Belle Fountain. So we've got 2 offices in Springfield. So it's 9 offices in total. We are just over $1 billion in assets. And like I said, when I started, I was 68 million and we had 24 employees. I was employee number 24. I was the youngest one there. I no longer am. But now to have 9 offices, we have about 195 employees, and to be over $1 billion was kind of neat. We set up a BHAG. I don't know if you're familiar with the BHAG concept from Jim Collins. I think he had it in Good to Great. It's the big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay, so that's 10-year goal that, hey, in 10 years you can look back and you've accomplished it. And we set it when we were it was in 2015, we were about 400 million, and we said, you know what, we want to be a $1 billion bank. That means we kind of self-actualize, right? People actually like you. If you're got to $1 billion, you've done something right.
Yeah.
Well, and February 8th of 2021, we got to $1 billion. So it was, thank you.
Awesome.
It was wonderful. It was a great feeling, but then it was kind of like, oh crap, now what? It's what do we do next?
Yeah.
And so, the next BHAG that we've established is, we want to rock the industry. We actually want to create an awesome community banking model for the future. Because if you look at the stats, in 2000, there were 300 banks and savings and loans in the state of Ohio. Today, there's about 160.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of 2 just this week that left, and I'm aware of another one that just is gone, about 2 weeks ago. It was announced that they're going to merge with somebody else. So there's 3 banks in a couple of weeks out of that 160 that is going to come off the list.
Wow.
You look at that and you say, okay, that's a model that's in danger, right? It's kind of like Blockbuster watching what was happening to their stores or to their sales and thinking, hey, things are fine. I'm sure it'll come back. No, you got to think of some new things. So, we're trying to create that community banking model for the future so that the banks can remain in the communities and stay, heavily tied to it.
While we're on that, what's the deal with the coffee in the bank?
Oh, wonderful. So, no, that was great. We wanted to kind of reinvent the bank lobby.
Yeah.
And so we walked in and we were trying to get good talent. We were trying to get the best talent, and they'd walk into our lobby, and our lobby was from 1950.
Did you have music playing? So I recently discovered there is a savings and loan, and I'm going to keep them unnamed.
Understood.
That still has a Muzak system.
Oh my!
That was playing 1960 musicals when I went into the branch.
Oh, wow.
That's fantastic. I know exactly what that was. We didn't have that anymore, but they did at one time. They had that.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard to get talent. Bring them in and say, hey, we're very innovative. We're ready for the future.
Yeah.
And they step back in time to 1950.
Yeah.
So we said, what can we do to kind of remodel it? And we knew it was going to be a big investment. But the problem was that the only people that walk in were the same people that walked in the day before. That was kind of a lot of money to not really get a good benefit out of it. So we started wondering what we could do. And originally we thought of a water thing, like a wishing well. Let's have a big turning wheel that's doing water. And we thought that'd be cool. When kids got coins from the bank, they could flip them in, make wishes. It'd be great. Then we thought, oh man, we got to take care of the water and mold. We'd have to clean it all the time. And our entire staff would have to pee all day because of the noise. You'd be going back and forth. So we scrapped that. Then I'm a huge Lego fan. Mm-hmm. We thought, okay, we're going to do a Lego feature. Every month we'll come up with a new Lego thing that we could build that people want to come and see. Kind of like the old retail stores that would do a window, right? So it's similar. We thought, man, number one, Legos are not cheap. And number two, and number 2, you'd have to come up with the idea every month. Yeah. That would be, are we going to do this? And we were much smaller at the time. It's like, we can't afford that. So finally, I'm walking down a mall and I look over and here's a Starbucks. It was just a Starbucks store, and there's 20 people in line, and it's a very small counter.
Yep.
I'm thinking, we've got the room to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually partnered with a company in Columbus called Crimson Cup, and they allow us to sell their coffee because we aren't permitted to sell it. So I called the Federal Reserve and I said, hey, we've got this idea. We want to put a coffee shop in our lobby, and we want to run it. My supervisor says that shouldn't be a problem. I said, great. He calls me back the next day and he says, we're going to have a problem. And there's a little thing out there called Glass-Steagall, and it doesn't allow you to mix commerce and banking. Mm. And sadly, he thought there'd be like a de minimis, like, hey, that's so little, nobody cares. Yeah, there's no de minimis. I can't still sell a stick of gum if I wanted to. So to mix the commerce and banking, you can't do it. So he says, if you sell coffee, you can't do it. But if you don't sell coffee, you can do anything you want. So we kind of took that as a challenge, right? It was just a way to say, okay, how can we devise this? So the way we do it is you do it through a donation model. You come in and you can donate money to specific donation spots that we have determined. And as a thank you, the bank gives you so many cups at the coffee shop.
There you go.
What you put in the cup is completely up to you, right? Yep. It doesn't matter. So there's no money actually attributed to it. It's just a thank you for your donation. And we get to work with these great nonprofits around all the communities. Each community has its own different ones that we work with. Again, they are customers of the bank, but we try to work with these nonprofits. They get this money coming from our customers that are getting coffee and they're giving money. But what's great for us, it's a win-win-win. We get not only people coming into the office, but those nonprofits will say, don't get your coffee at this place. Go to the bank and do it and donate the money to us. Yeah. So it's some advertising for us, and we build these great relationships. So that's the coffee shop idea, and we now have we have 5 of them, and we're really anxious to start our 6th one. So it's been a fun ride.
That's really great. And for the people listening that aren't familiar with Richwood, I want to say I'm from Columbus. I wasn't familiar with Richwood really before coming out to the Belle Fountain area, and I saw the bank and I heard the buzz. All this energy that you're talking about and innovative ways to change up the industry. I want to say it's working, and you're a force in the community, and I think that's something that we recognize here at Small Nation, and we appreciate that. As talking about small town revitalization, you need that energy. So just kudos to you, and thank you for doing that for our communities.
Well, thank you, Ethan.
So there are several different kinds of entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. So partnering with your community, would you say for those listening, maybe they're interested in starting their own business, what are some of those things that you're looking for when considering to partner with somebody as they're going about their first venture?
And this is tough, and Jason knows this. From a bank's perspective, I'm not an investor. Okay, and a lot of people have that misconception that we're the place to come help you start the business, and we'd love to be involved with you right off the bat. Yeah. But banks are kind of risk averse, right? It's just somebody that's starting something up. There's obviously risks to that. Now, it's not that we can't help, but to be that initial investor for you, I try to explain to people, we have no upside. We're either going to get paid back or we're not. If you're really successful, I'm only going to get paid back with whatever interest I'm owed. If you aren't successful, I'm not going to get my money back. To that entrepreneur, if they're successful, there could be an unlimited amount of money there, right? So it's that risk versus reward thing. So that's why a bank gets nervous, is there's really no great upside besides we just get our money back plus whatever interest is supposed to be there. So we really want to make sure we get paid back. And with the startup, it's difficult. But what we love is when, there could be collateral involved. A lot of times there's another investor, somebody that can back them to start off with. And you can have agreements that you can pay that person off, because once you've established your business and you've got records that you can show what you're making on a month-to-month basis, and you have this cash flow going, right? Cash is king. When you can show you've got cash flow and the things are going, now come to the bank and talk about, okay, let's do a business loan, that's just between you and us. And now the risk is much less because we can see a track record. We can see what's going on. So it's unfair because we get a lot of bad raps on it, but at the same time, that's really, banks aren't investors in brand new ventures. Yeah. It's not that we can't help, but you're going to have something else in the game. And I try not to discourage people with that. There's many investors out there that want to help businesses start up. Jason and his group, being right there, a great organization that is helping those businesses get started.
And I do think that's where collaboration and finding ways that we can work together. We talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that this may be their first business. Yeah. And so it's really spending time with them to understand what their model is.
Absolutely.
And providing that ongoing coaching, training, and mentorship. Sometimes they may need a small private money loan. We have many businesses that just don't qualify for traditional bank financing. Right. And even very community-minded institutions like Richwood, and Chad would do everything in his power to help someone, but they might not be ready for that loan. But that's where there's those gap types of services and products, and we at Small Nation have provided small private money loans for businesses to buy a oven, which banks like to collateralize things that are typically real estate. Right. But you have done things outside of real estate.
Oh, we have. No, I've done a loan on a horse before. So
there are creative ways
there
that
are.
it can be solved. But I do think, and when Chad was walking into the podcast today, and I'm just going to give a shout out to Richwood and our community-minded institution. Richwood is one of the three financial partners that we work with at Small Nation. Many people ask Jason, how do you fund the revitalization of all of these historic buildings and businesses that have started up? And I'm very quick to say there are three community-minded banks and savings and loans. And Richwood, as of tomorrow, we have a closing tomorrow.
Yes, we do.
They will now be our number one financial partner. So, we take those relationships very seriously because they believe in our vision and mission. And I think that's where in your community, really spending time getting to know your banker, getting to know the people that work at the bank, the board of directors that serve at the
Absolutely.
bank, all of those relationships are going to be immensely helpful as you need to ask for funds and people to support you and your business.
Yeah, the first thing, again, when you establish an account, get it at a bank that you're going to want to borrow from because they can see your cash, right? You can see the things that are moving in and out of the account. They have something to look at. You're building a basis of that loan that you want to get. We always encourage young people, get an account open somewhere and use it. Make your deposits into there, pay your bills out of it, because when you go to get your first car loan or your first, mortgage, you can show that, hey, I've been responsible with my money. I don't have NSFs. I'm not overdrawing my account. I've got a constant income. It's coming in every month, and here's my jobs and what I'm doing. And, even the fact that you're saving a little bit, right? You're putting some money away while you're working. You're not just spending everything as you make it. So those types of things build this credibility, right? It builds your character as a borrower, and that's one of the 5 C's of credit. And it's one we truly believe in. We like to give to the person. Yes, the conditions and the cause are important, but if you give to the right person with, that even if things are going bad for them, they're going to pay you no matter what. We're going to work it out, even if it's longer, if it's, you're changing it up, but they're going to work with you. They're not going to just walk away. So that character part is so important to the community banks. And Jason, you mentioned the other banks, and that's a big thing for me. I'm on the board of the Community Bankers Association of Ohio. We are also members of the OBL, which is the Ohio Bankers League. But I believe in community banking. You will never hear me talk bad about another community bank. Now, the bigs, we can have a conversation on the side. but I believe in that model. We lobby together. We go to the State House. We go to DC just to lobby for community banks to make sure that we're not being forgotten and things are set up that, we're not just under the bus all the time. So, if there's more banks in the room, that's easier to lobby. If there's only 1 or 2 of us left, that's not nearly as easy to carry influence. But when all of a sudden 30 or 40 bankers walk into the State House and say, hey, this is what we need to have to make, the community bank system work, all of a sudden they're paying attention. So, I believe in community banks. Matter of fact, you mentioned Richwood Marketing, and we could talk about that later, but several of our clients in Richwood Marketing are other banks. Oh, because we know what bank regulations are. We know how to set it up. We know how to help them with their websites.
Brilliant.
They're just smaller institutions that don't necessarily have those resources, and we can help them do that. And they don't view us as competition. We're all in the same game. Again, if we just took money from the bigs, the ones that should be working with us, then we're all going to be just fine.
And just to touch on that, why is marketing important?
Marketing is important just to get your message out. I believe in messaging. If there's a great book by Dennis Snow that's called Lessons from the Mouse, and he talks about taking care of your own career. But one of the things he says is one of the criticisms that people will say is it's always who you know. When people are moving up in an organization, it's always who you know. And it's like, of course it is. People aren't going to move you up if they don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, if that's what you're dealing with, it's always who you know, then get to know people. So it's the same thing with marketing, right? Who do you need to walk through the door? You need customers. Well, you can't just sit there and open your doors and think everybody's just going to come walking in. You've got to target. You've got to, promote yourself. You've got to get out there in front and say, this is why you should be working with me. This is the things I believe and why I'm here. It's not just I'm selling T-shirts. It's, hey, I'm trying to support this cause. I'm trying, this is what we want to become down the road. And you want customers that believe that same thing. And if you can push that through marketing and get your message out there, you've got a much better chance of being successful than just opening your doors and praying somebody walks in.
Yeah. So how did you as a bank make that transition? I guess when did that happen? Was that before you were?
It was actually in 2014. We hired an individual who had a marketing mind. Our first, one that really truly came in that had a bunch of marketing experience at other places. Our previous marketing person we'd hired straight out of college. She was doing a great job, but just didn't have any other experience besides what she had with us.
Yeah.
So we brought in somebody that had a true marketing mind. And the first thing they did for us was we started doing some special ads, and we were on Pandora. Now this is back when Pandora was first starting.
Yeah.
Innovating. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
But remember how they kind of geocoded the areas to where, hey, if you're on Pandora and you're in, our areas, we could make it so you would hear a Richwood Bank ad. Well, she got this great idea that we would do a Richwood Bank ad, but we would actually include the names of some of our best customers and throw them in the ad as well. And all of a sudden we started getting flowers from companies that were thanking us because they were hearing their name on Pandora. And they're asking how we did that. How did they get a commercial on Pandora? So we started thinking we could probably make money on that.
Yep.
Right? We could help them out and charge a fee just like we would on any other kind of a fee. So hence we approached the board in 2015 with the idea of Richwood Marketing and started the service. And so now if you're a client of Richwood Bank, we can help you with marketing services. I can't just go out and promote a marketing service because of the way the bank rules work. So if you're a client of Richwood Bank, I can help you develop a website. I can help you, do a campaign. We do a lot of logo design. We can do all these things and help our clients bring more customers to the door because, again, that just makes you financially stronger, right? So that's a good thing for me as well.
And Richwood Marketing's been a great partner with Small Nation. I mean, one of our companies is Comstar Outdoor, which is our billboard company, and we've used outdoor billboards to promote campaigns not only for Richwood Bank but also many of their clients.
Absolutely, we do some of their media buying, right? You're whether it's iHeartRadio. I mean, it's some of these places that they're trying to get their name out there, whether it's billboards that they're seeing or just different ways to get their message out there. I think that's so important. Now, hopefully, over time, you can continue to do it, and hopefully, it's the experience that you're giving people that your customers become some of your best marketing as well. But early on, you've got to get your message out there. You've got to get eyeballs. You've got to get ears. You've got to get people hearing your name and understanding what you do.
Can you speak to if you go back in time and think about when the bank was under $100 million in assets, one location?
Yep.
When you set out to paint the vision to say we're going to start a second location, not only that, a third, a fourth, tell us about what it was like to paint that vision, and was it easy?
Oh, no, it's very hard. I mean, it's never easy to expand a new area because there's risk, right? Well, we don't know that town as well. We haven't been operating there for years. And the worst part is when you start any business, and banking is no different, you open it, and if you didn't buy another bank, which the Springfield one was a purchase of ours, we purchased another institution that was looking for a buyer. But in all the other branches, so the 7 other branches, it was a brand new branch, just like here in Belle Fountain.
Wow.
So you're starting with account number 1.
Yeah.
So day one, guess how many people walk through the door? Whoever opens an account, right? Because there's nobody that's doing a transaction yet because you just don't have a big customer base.
Yeah.
So those first days are tough because you're just trying to get your name out there. You're trying to be recognized. You're trying to get people to walk in the door, open accounts, and then they start using your people. But you still have to have a staff that's ready to help them if they do walk in. But, you try to get the staff doing some things that are marketing, making some calls, looking for opportunities to work with people, and then just getting out and supporting the community in any way you can to show who you are and what you stand for. But was it easy? Absolutely not, because in every time you've got to motivate that group of people that's working there, that their days can be extremely slow. But then all of a sudden, years later, it's crazy and they're asking for more people and more help. And it may not even be years. It depends. And Belle Fountain has been very kind to us. And so, we've got a steady traffic already that we're very pleased with. But you've got to motivate. You've got to convince people that you're kind of the alien bank that's coming into a community, right? Hey, who's the new guys?
Yeah.
And you also get people that want to test you out on, they've been denied by every other bank in the area. And so they come to you to see if you're crazy enough to make a loan, and so it gets demoralizing to the team because a lot of the early loans are denials because they're people that got turned down by everybody else in town. So they just try you too.
Yeah.
So it's motivation. It's getting involved. It's hiring people from that community. So you're not just commuters coming in and then leaving at the end of the night. Our big focus, and that's one of the things we do, is try to hire those local people so that, hey, when their kids are playing ball, that's our people whose kids are out there playing ball too.
Yeah.
Right in that community. And that's a very important part of how we do it. But to convince people, Jason, as well, on convincing people with Small Nation and convincing entrepreneurs that, hey, this is what you need to do. There's a lot of pushback because this is different. This is outside of my comfort zone. And they always say that your world starts just outside your comfort zone, right? Your life begins. So it's been fun.
Can I ask, how do you identify those new communities that you want to move into? And like, at what point do you make the call that we're going to go for it?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to add on to that
because
please. That is a really important question. But I'm also going to say Belle Fountain is your newest branch.
It is.
A small town, 14,000 people.
Absolutely.
You are in markets, and you've recently expanded to markets like Marysville and Delaware, which are some of the fastest growing markets, not only in the state, but the country.
They are.
But yet, you chose little old Belle Fountain.
So what's nice is we deal with the community parts of it. There are parts of Delaware County that don't necessarily use Richwood Bank. Okay, and I'll even say it, to that southern part, the Polaris area. It's not that I wouldn't work with a company that's down there. That's not necessarily the people that are attracted to the way we do it. But, Delaware, the city, Marysville, the city, there's a lot of what I call mom and pop shops, mom and pop businesses that are very successful because of the other growth around the county. A local restaurant that's just successful because they run a great restaurant and now there's a bunch of population there. That's who we want to work with. And those opportunities exist in those towns as well as in a place like Belle Fountain that's smaller, but you've got all these locally owned businesses and local, the owners live right here. They're not all the franchises. Am I ever going to have accounts with Walmart? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. I don't want accounts with Walmart, but I want accounts with the local hardware store that's owned by the guy that actually lives in the town. So that's who I want to work with and who we focus on. So Belle Fountain, we actually, the way we focus on it is we look at the town itself, but the big thing is, I admit openly, we look at who owns most of the deposits. If it's a big bank, if it's, and I'll say it out loud again, if it's a Huntington, because Huntington did a lot in the state of Ohio, especially in our area. If it's Huntington, that's much more attractive. If the majority of deposits are held by another community bank, a lot of times we'll kind of pass on that. Because like I said, I'm not targeting other community banks.
Right.
I think community banks need to make sure that they are building their base in these communities. And if there's not a strong community bank presence in my mind, that's where we need to be. Mm-hmm. If there already is, we kind of take a pass on that. And I'm not being insulting to some of the other community banks that are there, but I look at that market share. And if the market share is held by the bigs, then I want to come in and see if we can't chip away at that.
Yeah, and just make the experience better.
Absolutely.
And thinking about, coming in to a smaller town like Belle Fountain, but still coming because of the small shops and everything that are here in the downtown. Obviously, that's something of a point of pride for Small Nation is bringing that. And I think I hear a lot of people asking about competition when they come in for our tours and things like that. Yep. And are we concerned about that, having so many salons in downtown and so on? But I feel like we always are quick to respond saying that, when one of us wins, it brings everybody else up. And so it's just really cool to see from the two different industries, as we work to bring town or small businesses downtown and revitalize the downtown area, that it was attractive enough for a community bank to want to come in and support that, which only accelerates it, right?
Oh, absolutely, Ethan. And what Small Nation was doing, again, we were excited to come just because we wanted to be a part of this, what I'll call petri dish of this test thing that all these people are coming in to look at what you're doing. How are you revitalizing it? Because it's a beautiful model and what you're doing. And I am a big believer in the rising tide raises all boats. I mean, if somebody's successful, that helps the community. So let's support them, even if that's a competitor. Mm-hmm. Because again, if you're a great restaurant, if you're a great store, that's going to bring people hopefully to the area that maybe I have a shot at. I mean, I've got to do my own work, right? I can't expect somebody else to do my work for me.
Right.
But I've got to get my message out there. But if somebody beside me is doing well, hopefully that benefits me too. Again, you treat people in a special way. People will travel a long ways for a great experience, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And look at your restaurants that you've got here. I mean, you've got people traveling from all over to come to these restaurants that several years ago did not exist. That's exciting, and that helps every other business that's here, because here's these people coming. We have a chance to also benefit from that. So to support each other just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Right. That's great.
I'll just mention, I know leadership is important to you, and finding ways to invest and support teaching leadership and inspiring others. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I'm a big believer that, again, I go back to the marketing side that says, your customers can't love you. Simon Sinek said it, actually. He says, your customers can't love you unless your employees love you first. right? And it's just true. If you've ever been to a place where you are working with one of the employees and in some business and they look like they're ready to jump off the building, that's not a great experience. That's not a place you want to go back to, right? But when you go into a place that they seem excited and you've been there, those kind of places stand out, right? Yeah. They're those places where, wow, I want to go back there because that was an awesome experience. And there's no regulation that says that even banking can't be a great experience. It's not been traditionally the case. Usually you have the cattle stalls where people have to walk around the lines and you have the separate teller lines where there's bars between you and me or something along those lines. And I understand that years ago that was a thing, but today I think we've got to break out of that and create some kind of we've become their consultants, right? If you want to do a transaction, you can do it online. Good grief, you can get these ITMs now that have the face of somebody that pops up on the screen, and that person's in Minnesota. You have no idea where they are, but they're going to help you with your transaction because here's this machine. No, let's give them an experience that, hey, makes them want to bring back their family and friends, right? We go with the Walt Disney model. And if we're able to give them that awesome experience, you open an account and it's so great. So you get back to the leadership thing. You have to be able to motivate, give them a game plan. This is where we're headed. To create this community banking model. If I say I want to create an awesome community bank model, okay, I might be able to attract some people with that, but now I got to give them a game plan of how we're going to do that. And we've got a plan that, number one, we say we want to be the Disney of banking, right? We literally want to do that. And the reason I say that, and I apologize, it's a little story on this one, but when you go to a vacation at Disney, a lot of times they'll send you a survey afterwards and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your vacation to Disney?
Yeah.
And most people say a 9 or a 10. Some people would say 12 or 13 if they'd let them. Well, that's great, but I want you to think of going to Disney and you're staying there and you've got a family there and you stay on their resorts and you have to wake up in the morning, you've got kids and you got to get them around because you're going to be there when the park opens, right? So you got to get them up early. You have to get there. So you're either driving there or you're doing Disney travel along with thousands of other individuals trying to do the same thing. You have to go up to the security gate. You have to wait in that line, then go through security. Then you've got to go to the front line and go through with your ticket or now your wrist, badge. So you go through there. Then if you have small children, you have to get through the stroller line, pay a small fortune to get the stroller. And that entire time the kids are asking where Mickey is. You're not even in the park yet. So at that moment, if I text you and say on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your trip to Disney going? It's probably not a 9 or a 10 right now. So you go to lunch, right? You pay for 3 hamburgers and you pay for chicken nuggets and, you have to take out of your kid's college fund to actually pay that. If I text you right then, you're probably thinking, okay, that's not a 9 or a 10 right now. You're standing 2 hours in a line. You're hot. The kids are getting cranky. You're not there yet. You watch some fast pass people go by you and you're getting upset. Not a 9 or a 10. So why, 2 weeks later, do you give them a survey and they say, okay, that vacation was a 9 or a 10? And it's simply because where else can you, see Cinderella sign your kid's signature book? Where else can you see the light show, the fireworks and the projections onto the castle, and what they do with that is amazing. See Tinkerbell, fly from the top of the castle lit up like a Christmas tree. Your kids are just in awe. You see all these different characters around. You see just the way that they treat people. And it is a great place from that perspective. It's supposed to be the happiest place on earth.
Right.
All of the clunkiness that you experienced was forgotten because of these memories that they're building. And that story comes from a great book that's called The Power of Moments by Dan and Chip Heath. It's a great book, and it talks about banking is clunky. I've got to get your social security number. I've got
friction. There's friction
absolutely.
everywhere.
There's friction everywhere. Okay, so that's a great word. There's this friction that's going to be there. I called it clunky, but friction's even better. And you say, here's this I cannot avoid. But can I knock your socks off in a couple of places? Can I offer you Cinderella? Can I offer you the castle? Can I do something for you at the bank that surprises you in a pleasant way that all of a sudden you forgot all that friction? Because, hey, here was this great experience that was really cool. And we've tried to do different things. We continue to try to do different things because I think we've got to continue to evolve that. But when we say the Disney of banking, I don't mean I want Mickey Mouse out leading our parade. It's
I think he'd look good in the Mickey
Mouse. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. But I've been told that before, sadly. But it's just, to provide, Disney is a for-profit organization, right? In 2018, now this would have been right before, obviously, the pandemic and things of that, but Forbes had put out a list, and they were the 25th most profitable company in the nation. They were the first one that wasn't an oil company, an investment bank, in healthcare or technology. Everything else, all those other 24 were in one of those 4 categories. So here's this company that comes along, and they're the most profitable just because of the way they treat. It's just a theme park. You're just supposed to ride rides. but yet they've turned it into the happiest place on earth. So there's no regulation that says that banking can't be that. So, for me on the leadership side, it's teaching people, give them that, how are we going to do this? Here's our goal. How are we going to do that? And then build some values around it as well. This is the way we're going to behave. And then, kind of build those measurements and celebrate them. We've built values that we live by. And when we reached certain goals, like the $1 billion, we're going to celebrate that. Mm-hmm. We have quarterly celebrations to where we bring everybody together. And if you had a great quarter last quarter, whether it was a department or an individual, we want to celebrate that. We want to put their names up on a board and say, hey, congratulations. But we also have things that we vote for, like attitude awards and what we call a You Rock Award. Mm. And people nominate other employees, their other team members, just to recognize them for being awesome sometimes, and you don't want to make it phony. You want to make it legit, but we have a lot of people doing a lot of special things. So it's a fun thing. So on the leadership side, to make leaders understand that, it's your job to motivate, to bring somebody to their maximum potential, not just tell them what to do. You're more of a coach than a boss. Mm-hmm. And if you can coach them into better performance and leadership skills and learn how to do that, learn how to motivate, you're going to be much happier with the results at the end of the day than just standing there, telling it. I tell the story, if you're coaching a basketball team and you hand them the ball and you just say, go beat the other team. Yeah. And that's it. Okay, that's not a coach, right? But sometimes bosses do that, right? Yeah. It's like, well, here's this, now go get that done.
Yeah.
And if you're not mentoring, if you're not giving them some opportunity to grow as an individual, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a lot of people going in different directions. But, a true coach, they draw the play up on the board, right? And you've got the X's and O's, and I know which O I am, and he's showing me what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Why can't we as leadership and as bosses, why can't we give that opportunity to our team so that they have a clear picture of what success looks like for me?
And if you haven't heard those success stories already or cool stories of the transformation by just pouring into people like that, I'm sure you're going to, and networks all around.
It is. And even in today's market, right, where employees are hard to find.
Yeah.
You can't just treat people the way we sometimes treated them. Sadly, I know employees in some organizations got treated poorly. Well, now they can just leave and go work somewhere else because there's a lot of jobs out there. So you better be invested in their success so that they feel like they're, are growing in you as an organization. So I get back to that, we want, the employees to love us. And what's nice is the last 9 years, we've been able to be in the top workplaces category in Columbus CEO magazine. Wow. And we've even been recognized in Forbes and from a national perspective on their top workplaces because of the surveys that anonymously my team turns in. They give us the benefit of the doubt. We're not perfect. I'm saying that right now. We're not perfect. But I do think they see that we're trying to make their experience a great one too. And those scores show up in these that turn us into a top workplace. And that helps you bring in more talent, because who wouldn't want to work for a top workplace, you'd like to hope. So to promote yourself in that way, we want the best talent we can get and to keep it and to nurture it and, to let them advance in the organization.
Even though feedback at times can burn a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That is the most essential thing because you can't fix the problems if you don't know what the problems are.
Absolutely. And that goes for customers as well as your employees. We'll find out if what you're doing is working. We just had a policy that we changed this week that we said what we were going to do, and the feedback was not what we'd anticipated. It was a little bit firmer than what we'd anticipated from both the employees as well as some customers. And so we were nimble enough to say, okay, we admitted up openly, hey, that was maybe not the exact right call, so we're going to move over here now. And it's a much better situation. But if you're blind to that, if you don't listen to that, I just don't think that benefits you in the long run. If you make a mistake, admit it and move forward.
Yeah.
Don't try to cover it up and
it's
say, well, it's not. Yes.
I know you already dropped a few of them, but what are some of the books, podcasts, other resources that have helped you in your journey?
One of my favorite books right now, and I mentioned Simon Sinek earlier. He's one of my favorite thought leaders today and just writers. I love it. But The Infinite Game is a great book that he wrote just a couple of years ago. And Start With Why is another one that he wrote, and another one that was called Leaders Eat Last. And he's got this little itty bitty book that just has great quotes in it that's called Together is Better. And those are, and he's not paying me for any of this, I promise. But I just think his ideas are great because he thinks in a new way. And I admit openly, in the 1980s, I was a Gordon Gekko fan. Okay, I watched Wall Street. I loved that guy. Greed is good, right? I mean, this is wonderful. I was infatuated with that type of business setting, and realized back then that might have been okay. Today, that doesn't work anymore. And so Simon, I think, is pulling us out of that, those of us that kind of grew up in that era and maybe even think that way today, he's kind of pulling you out and making you think in a different way. Patrick Lencioni, again, is another one of my favorite writers, the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the 5 Temptations of a CEO. But one of my favorites that he just wrote is called The Motive. And he says the motive, it's all about, there's two there's two main reasons, fundamental reasons why people choose to be a leader. The first one is, I want to be of service to those that I lead. I want to make this place better. I want you to grow. I want to kind of implement things that are going to make this better for all of us. All right. The other reason, and the all too common one, sadly, is it's a reward for my past deeds. So, I've worked hard for my whole career. I deserve this. They do it because of the money, the power, the recognition. They just want to see their title change. They want to be able to have a C-level, and they think that they've arrived once they hit that. And I find that those are the people that they don't learn a lot anymore. They don't read books. They don't look at other things, and they don't do things that they believe are below them. You've had a boss that just, decides that that's below my position.
Yeah.
That's not good. Or they just don't do things that they don't want to do. They make somebody else do it. The crappy jobs, we're just going to have somebody else do that. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm the boss now and I get to call the shots. He calls that, that's another reason, but he calls it the invalid one. And we see that. And if you read that book, I promise you that any boss you've ever had, you will know which side they fell on.
Yeah.
And, you obviously want the one side versus the other.
Right.
But everybody knows when you say that the second reason is an invalid one. I mean, everybody knows that's not a good reason.
Yeah.
But yet, I promise you, if you read it, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah.
It's just true. And I don't see how that kind of gives bosses a bad name, right? You want to have those people that believe that there's going to be sacrifices that the boss has to make. You're going to be working longer hours sometimes than anybody else. On the way into the bank every morning, I literally pick up all the receipts at the ATM. Because people, for some reason, they'll print the receipt, they'll look at it, and then they'll just drop it. And so around the ATM, I don't know, because you can see it on the screen a lot of times. You don't have to print it, but they choose to print it and then they just drop it. Well, it bothers me. So every morning between my car and the building, I walk over and I pick up whatever I see from that perspective. Do you know that boss that would walk in and it would say, hey, Jason, go out and pick up the receipts at the ATM there. It's a mess. Just do it. Just sweep the floor, just do whatever needs to be done. And if a leader has that kind of a mentality, and I know Jason always has had that, you're not above it. You don't ask people to do things that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself.
And I think those values, I think back, I know family business was important to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Same thing with me. And my grandfather said the two most important jobs is opening up the mail every day and emptying the trash cans. And I still have that is hard-coded in my head.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Every day.
Well, what's funny is when I was coming up, when we were only 24 people working at the bank, everybody worked all 6 days. Okay, so you worked Saturday mornings. That's just everybody did it. Well, as we got bigger, obviously there are departments that don't need to be there on Saturdays, and that's pretty attractive. They work Monday through Fridays. And then I've got some of my retail people obviously have to be there on a Saturday morning because we're open. So a lot of people want to be in that group. It's just Monday through Friday. So one of the things, I've just always done it, but every Saturday morning I'm in my office and at 8:15 we do what we call huddle, and everybody gets on a Teams meeting, and I'm sure you probably do the same.
We are at 8:15 every day. we do our huddle call.
We should connect.
That's hilarious. Actually, we may do a joint Richwood huddle.
We should do it.
Hilarious,
but honestly, at 8:15 we get all of our branches together and we share positives from the previous day. So every branch gets a chance to chime in and say something. It takes us about 15 minutes because, again, we don't go long. We're not doing dissertations. We've got a person in one of our branches that she told one of our leaders that she was a little shy and that she didn't like talking on it. So he says, you know what, to challenge yourself, you should come up with a reason to speak up on huddle. All of a sudden, she's become our joke teller on huddles in the morning. She will tell some of the corniest jokes that you've ever heard.
That's culture, and that is also why we love the huddle. We've been doing it now for, I think, coming on probably 15 years. We do our daily 8:15 a.m. huddle, and each team member that's kind of the senior leaders of the company will share kind of 3 big things that there were victories that they accomplished, and then maybe one area they need help or support. So you kind of hear what's trending for that day. It gets everyone kind of high energy, hearing what's trending with other people, but that's been huge for us.
Oh, absolutely. And what's funny is we started ours in 2007. So we're right in that 15-year
That's
period
hilarious.
as well.
I love that.
And originally it was on the phone.
Yeah.
And of all the pandemic things, that was one of the things the pandemic brought out for us is we converted, because again, we were huddling around the phone, right? That's was the whole thing, is you got to see who was there that day. So then when the pandemic hit, everybody did it remotely. We started doing it from our desks instead. But what was great is you could see their faces. Right. So after the pandemic, we just stuck with the team. So everybody signs on through that, and we can see all the faces, and, it's a large screen of faces, and that's pretty awesome to get. They don't always put their camera on, because I don't know what kind of a bad hair they're having.
Some of us are driving in. So,
exactly. But what I was getting back that Saturday thing, it's so much fun for me to it's just me and usually the 5 branches that we have open on a Saturday morning. And, we have a huddle. But they see me there, right? And do I have to go in on a Saturday? No, my job doesn't require it, but I get more done on a Saturday morning because there's not a lot of people there, so it's great. But it's just that camaraderie. It's what you're building. It's being that boss, and you're there for them no matter what.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for just sharing with us and coming on the show today. Where can people find you and keep up with what's happening with Richwood Bank?
Oh, absolutely. Well, of course, richwoodbank.com. We're on social media. I admit openly I'm not a great...
I'm still working on him.
Yeah.
I've been working on it for about 15 years.
It's been a tough ride for me on social media. I'm with people all day long, and at night I just kind of like to unplug, so I don't have to do that. And so while I'm all over the place, social media is a tough one for me. Hopefully you'll see us in the community. Go to community events. I encourage you to go. I know, Belle Fountain has the Uptown events, and I want to support those types of things. Our members are going to be there. I get to go there occasionally. Do I get to hit all of them? Of course, with all of our markets, I do not. But I love to attend those types of things. Last night, I actually judged a Battle of the Bands. I was one of the celebrity judges for a Battle of the Bands. I love those types of things, right? You're with the entire community doing something that was really fun. So hopefully I'll just see you around town.
Yeah.
So I'll just mention a plug. We are hosting Leadership Ohio here in August, which are bringing hundreds of leaders from around the state to come and take a downtown tour. I want to graciously thank Chad's going to be one of the keynote speakers for that event, and also Richwood Bank is one of the sponsors. So just a huge thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you thinking of us. Those are the kind of groups that we love. I mean, I'll want to support that, right? Anything that's leadership and trying to help people become better leaders, I'm all over that.
Very cool. Well, at the end of these episodes, usually we have Jason give one little golden nugget, just if anything has triggered his thoughts or anything, just to leave the listeners with one last golden nugget before we leave.
I think when you hear Chad painting the vision back in 2007 of taking an institution that is under $100 million, one location, and scaling to over $1 billion with a B today, painting that vision took a lot of courage, and we've talked about courage with other leaders. But I think the one that I walked away with today is the currency that you and your institution believe in is the way that you treat people. And that's a powerful thing, is the way that you treat your employees, the way you treat your customers, and the way you're innovating and bringing your products and services, but everything still is around people.
Oh, thank you, Jason. That's kind. I do have a belief, and I've told our employees this, that I can be nice all the way to letting you go. If it doesn't work out, that's fine, but I believe to treating you like a human being, whatever that is. Even if it doesn't work out, if this isn't your thing, that's fine. Go find your thing. But I'm going to treat you with respect all the way to making that happen. And if we can do that, I think, we've reached a new place in leadership.
Love it.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in and checking out the Small Talk podcast. You can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even the Small Nation YouTube channel. I hope you're able to pull some value from that conversation, and we hope to see you in the next one. If you haven't subscribed already and are looking for more of this kind of content, be sure to check out the Friday Small Talk newsletter that goes out every week. Stay tuned to Small Nation on social media and keep up with everything that is happening there, as there are lots of exciting projects in the works. And until next time, this is the Small Nation podcast signing off.